Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the WHOLESTIC method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Mindy Pelz.
Hello, my favorite low-carb aging athletes. I just wanted to share with you a special coupon code that I have from one of my favorite supplements, BioOptimizers. BioOptimizers has some great products that I often recommend to my health coaching clients based on their nutritional therapy analysis and their functional labs and food log symptoms that we look at. And a few of those are from BioOptimizers called HCl Breakthrough, Gluten Guardian, Magnesium Breakthrough, Capex, and their Masszymes enzymes, which is the strongest enzyme formula ever. And it has 5 different kinds of protease. Often we don't digest our food properly. So we are what we eat, but we also are what we can properly break down and absorb. So learn more from BioOptimizers. Check out their website and use our code LowCarbAthlete next time you go to purchase something. Enjoy. Okay, I got the energetic Dr. Mindy on the show again to talk about her favorite specialty topic, fasting variations. And we're going to go in a little deeper on fasting, low carb, keto for athletes, but specifically I want to go even deeper for the female athlete and then the aging female athlete as myself, as we reach to menopause, as I turned 50 last month. And it's just, woo, what do we need to do to change things up? So thanks for coming on. I know you're so busy doing all your lives every day and your podcasts and you're all over the place.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This is a conversation that needs to be had amongst women because there's some nuances we need to know about fasting. And if we don't pay attention to it, it can really take us down a really bad hormonal path. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was telling my audience that I kind of stopped last half of what year is it? 2021 podcasting as much. Like I had to get clarity, step away. Like, what am I trying to accomplish here? And I realized there's this missing area that we're not talking about because everyone's keto, carnivore, fasting. It's like, wait, what about this whole category of the endurance athlete training for triathlons, Ironmans, running races, cycling long distance? And I feel like people are hearing all the information out there and incorporating it into their lifestyle. But I know myself, 8 years ago now, I was doing all this stuff and I created this metabolic chaos. And I feel like it's my purpose. I found out like, okay, that's my purpose. This is what happened to me is to, for a reason, help other people avoid going through this downhill spiral that's going to happen if they don't learn when to break a fast, when to add some carbs. Not all carbs are evil, and vary their fasting, vary their keto and plans. So let's kind of give a little update of what you've been working on so hard. You're, getting all these people around the world to fast. You've created such a huge impact. 2021, we're posting this, it'll be 2022. What's going on?
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking as you were talking that how I became so passionate about fasting for women was the same reason, because I had my own journey with it. And the short version of a very long story is that at about 45, I really found fasting. I'm 52 years old now, and I loved it so much. I felt like my energy, mental clarity, everything was just at its best, that of course, as athletes, we want to do more of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if a little bit's good, a lot would be a lot
Exactly.
better. So I just started fasting a ton. And then I started noticing everything from my changes in my hair. My hair was falling out. It got really flat. My cycles were really off. Now for a 45-year-old woman, you would think that would be normal, but I'll kind of explain how once I course corrected it actually came back. And anxiety, I think that was the biggest one. And it was body anxiety. It was like, I couldn't sit on the couch and just relax. So what I did is I ran a hormone test on myself and found that at 45 years old, my hormones were lower than a postmenopausal woman. And I was like, this is not right. So this is how I discovered that women need to fast differently. And I think this is the start of the conversation, is that when a woman, and this is the most basic way I can explain it, when a woman goes to fast, she has to think about her hormones, whether she's postmenopausal, whether she is in the middle of perimenopause, or she's 20 or 30. So for fasting alone, we have to think about that. But then if you put on an endurance athlete, you put on an over exerciser, which is a little bit what, especially as we get older, we have to modify our exercise, as you've discovered. Now we've got ourselves a real hormonal mess. And I think that's the nuance that women need to know.
Yeah, I think I always say, I've learned from my own experience, more is not better and less is more, that we need to pay attention to that, and when to, stop, as we said, a fast, and when we should eat before a workout, when we shouldn't. And I think it's really, people have to learn how to pay attention to those red flags. Cause I think for me, I had them going on for years. I was like, push through it. We're tough. We're overachievers, driven, ambitious females, that we're not going to let anything stop us and be, a wimp, or, break something that was like, I can do this. And I think it's realizing, when is that okay to let go?
Right.
And less is more philosophy.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. And I would just say, like, when you have that push on through mentality as a female athlete, it serves you so well in so many ways. And there are some ways it doesn't serve you at all. In fact, it harms you. Yeah. And I think that's the thing to understand when it comes to fasting, is that we need to have a rhythm to it. It shouldn't be more is better. That is definitely for a woman, not the scenario. And if we understand our hormones, then we can know when to fast and go into a big fast, and when we need to not fast. So I think that's the overarching idea I want women to know, is we've got to do it different. And the athletic woman needs to know, push on through is not the mentality you have when it comes to fasting. It doesn't serve you here.
Well, I just got my full thyroid panel done a few months ago. And I was talking to Dr. Amy, the thyroid fixer, we're going over it. It's like, all right, how many other women are doing this fasting and not eating till later on, and pushing their fast too long with their exercise routine, causing their thyroid panel, as well as like looking at their Dutch test, to just go downhill and not even know it. You don't really correlate all these odd symptoms that, like, oh, that's, to be eating gluten and wheat and causing gut dysfunction, all these other little things that kind of add up into our metabolic chaos. But
with the thyroid, I just want to point out that, because this is a big fasting myth, which is that fasting is calorie restriction. It is not calorie restriction. It is time restricted eating. So when we look at the thyroid and fasting, all the studies done on the damaging effect of fasting to the thyroid were on calorie restriction diets. And this might be something helpful for your audience to realize, is that when you're fasting, all you're doing is compressing your eating window. And then when you eat, you gotta eat. And it's not a time to restrict.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of type A athletes are doing. They're exercising a lot during that fast. I saw some gal, and I have to message her privately. She was, really excited she could do a 48-hour fast and do 2 CrossFit workouts in that. She's like, I'm going to do this all the time. Like, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
And then other people's, just kind of like, oh, I can go fast as long and not have anything, and, do all these different workouts. But I think it is that combination of exercising during the fast. And then, as you're saying, we're eating and not eating enough calories, because there's still kind of that diet mentality, trying to be fat burners and lose weight. And
a good place to start on that conversation is to just realize, this is how I recommend female athletes do a typical fast, is you pick your fasting window and you pick it ahead of time. So I do this every morning. I just ask myself, when am I going to break my fast? And what am I trying to achieve? So if I'm going longer, maybe I want more autophagy where I'm like, oh, I overdid it. And I need to like detox myself a bit and just kind of clean some cells out. Then I'll go 17 hours or more. If I want more gut repair, I'll go 24 hours or more. But if I'm like, I don't know what I want, I just want some ketones, I might go like 13 to 15 hours. So I decide ahead of time what I want to do. And then when I decide to break a fast, what a female athlete should be breaking her fast with almost every single time is protein. So, and it should be at least 30 grams of protein, because that 30-gram mark is what hits those sensors that will build their muscles stronger. So you can use fasting to your fitness advantage if you do it that way. And then like literally when I break it, and the hardest part is sometimes you're not hungry.
Yeah.
So you got to like really eat a couple of, we do sausages, eggs, like just really dive into the protein. And then if you do this, where let's say you fast for 15 hours, you're stimulating or about, let's say anywhere from 15 to 17, you're stimulating autophagy, you're cleaning cells out, you're making your body more effective on a cellular level. Then work out in the fasted state, and then immediately following power up on protein. Okay, now we're actually using a lot of cellular healing responses that will work to your advantage. When you power up on protein, you stimulate mTOR, and mTOR builds the muscle back up. So you got to think about it for the female athlete. We've got to hack it a little more specifically.
And how would that be different for men then? For male athletes, do you find that
men
similar?
Could do the same thing. Men could do that same routine. I think for women, after 40, we have to fight for muscle.
Yeah.
And so you really need to, and especially if you're talking with endurance athletes that might be breaking muscle down. Now the CrossFit woman isn't going to need to know that as much, but if you're a triathlete or a marathon runner, you're going to have to think about that a little bit more. But I just think for women, we have to fight for more muscle. So we have to be even more intentional about how we break our fasts.
Because Dr. Gabrielle Leon's protocol is 1 gram of protein per body weight pound. So if you want to weigh 130 pounds, you want to eat 130 grams of protein throughout the day. But then, you can't take that in all at once. You want to break it up throughout the day. So having it in liquid form is bone broth or aminos and water or capsules, and then have 1 or 2 meals with more protein base. Is that what you kind of find?
Yeah, exactly. It's the research shows that it's best in 30-gram chunks every 2 to 3 hours. So I would agree with her on that. And I actually think it's a shorter fast. To me, a shorter fast is 15 to 17 hours. Anything over 17 starts to become a little longer fast. So I think if you pair it with a shorter fast, you're actually hacking into making your muscles ridiculously strong. So it's a good balance of 2 principles.
So the type of exercise, I've been trying to pull up research, and it's always hard with females to get good at research on fasting and exercise, but I find that it's the fasted exercise in the morning to do before you break your fast would be low heart rate type of easy exercise that you're not driving your heart rate up. That's fat burning. So we call it maffetone, max aerobic function heart rates, 180 minus your age, something around there, that fat burning state. If it's walking, a lot of people I find as they're getting more fit, walking doesn't get their heart rate up enough if they're trying to get exercise, but just, riding a bike, spin bike, or doing cardio machines, or getting ideally outside. But do you find what are you able to do in a hormone healthy state when you're doing fasted exercise? Do you have I know you have some ideas.
Yeah, let me give you some basic ideas, and then maybe what we should do is go around the woman's cycle so we can talk about the different hormones, because it really depends on what time of your cycle you're doing it. So the first thing I would say is strength training is really good in a fasted state. And here's why. So let's go back to maybe, a decade ago, before you knew all these principles, you were eating a lot of carbs, especially the female athlete was probably carb loading as her pre-workout routine. Your body had over all those years had to store that extra sugar somewhere. So it stores it typically, it'll start by storing it in your liver, then it'll store it as fat, and then it stores it in your muscles. Now, every time you work out, you're releasing that storage from your muscle. And the harder the workout, the more release of this glucose, which is great. The way I look at that process is when you are doing a hard workout and you're wiping this, it's like wiping the slate clean. You're like, okay, I'm emptying glycogen stores out. So now I worked out in a fasted state. Now I need to put some glycogen, get more glycogen stores back in, because you're going to need it for the next day. So I think we can say, yes, strength training, you're going to go after muscles in a very deep way, which is why you can do it in a fasted state, but then let's really power up on protein, because you just broke your muscle down. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're doing endurance, like a long run, I would say you're going to want to break you can do it in a fasted state, but you're going to want to break it with more carb rich. You're going to want to, because you're going to need those carbs for the next long run that you do. So that's how you can start to get real strategic about it.
So if you're doing a speed run, like we did this morning, we did high heart rate, low heart rate. So you're going to deplete that muscle glycogen more so than running at, say, your fat burning heart rate range. So you might need to add a little bit more carbs in your meal afterwards.
That's right. Whereas if you were pure weightlifting, or I like the TRX and do a lot of that work, and you're really working those muscles, then you would break it with protein only. So think about what you're going to replenish when you go back after something like that. Because this is where fasting really doesn't work well for women, is that if you are fasting and really working out hard and there's no replenishment of what those muscles need, over time, you could start to conk a little bit. And that's what we don't want. Or over time, it'll affect the sex hormones. Mm-hmm. And the one sex hormone that is not going to respond well to any extreme anything is progesterone. So, and this is the hardest one for those of us that love to exercise and love to fast. This is the hardest one for us to keep in check. And that's because progesterone needs you to keep cortisol down. So remember that exercise spikes cortisol and fasting spikes cortisol. So if in the front half of your cycle, when your body's building estrogen, that's not going to be as much of a problem. But in the back half of your cycle, especially the week before your cycle, if you have those two spikes of cortisol going up at the same time, that is going to throw your whole hormonal cycle off.
Wow. Yeah. And that's when you want to eat certain days of the month of progesterone. You had a good list of what foods to have when your progesterone is higher in those days, and how to work with your hormones to match your nutrition with your hormones, keep them balanced.
Yeah. So a way to approach the week before your cycle would be, okay, a little shorter fast. If you're listening to this and you're like, but I love to fast and I love to work out and I feel so good, then just start by the week before your cycle, keep the fast shorter. So 13 hours would be the top I would go. And then when you break your fast, break it with progesterone building foods. So this would be your squashes, potatoes, beans, citrus fruit, tropical fruits, even some grass-fed meats can be thrown in there, but it's not keto. I just want to point this out. That is not, in fact, just for every woman, the week before our cycle, we are not meant to go keto. What your body actually naturally raises its glucose during that time, and so that it needs more blood sugar so that it can make progesterone. This is where it will kill every single female athlete that is fasting too much and exercising at that time, they'll start spotting, they'll lose their period. You start, again, you see hair changes, all of that. So that's really the week you got to be super focused on giving progesterone what she needs.
And then days that you ovulation, do you change nutrition intake then?
Yeah. So ovulation's interesting especially if we're talking the female athlete, which is super fun, because there's so many ways we can take all these great tools and like mix and match them. So ovulation is day 10 to day 15-ish. And this is when estrogen's at its highest and testosterone's at its highest. So this is actually a really good 5-day window to power up on your heavier weights, because you have testosterone surging through you. So use it and power up all of that great, use it to help you build muscle. But the thing about estrogen and testosterone is that they respond in that ovulation when they're high, they are going to respond best to a lot of leafy green vegetables, things that will help you break those hormones down and move them through your body, get them out of your the toxic estrogen, get it out of you. So lots of salads, lots of variation of vegetables. This is where I throw in, we call it the plant diversity score. How many different vegetables can you get in a day? Can you get 20 to 30 different types of vegetables in during that ovulation window? Now you're using estrogen and testosterone and really maximizing them. And then you're working out in more strength training, maximizing what you already have been given. And you see how you can start to just like alter your patterns of eating, fasting, and working out when you time it all to your cycle. And it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think so many people out there, they're into keto. They don't understand as an athlete, and the female athlete, it's okay to add carbs sometimes. There's specific times of the month for female athletes to not feel guilty like they're cheating, but you're actually benefiting your body. You're building those hormones versus breaking your body down, creating that metabolic chaos that you have to go, okay, that's what I need to eat. And this is what my body's asking for. Listen to it. Versus I think so many people think, oh, I got to stay 50 grams of carbs because that's what everyone says. And I need to just stay there or be strict carnivore or whatever they're into, but not realize that it's okay some days of the month to change it up and vary what you're doing and everything.
Yeah. And so let's do this. Look, why don't we just go through the cycle so people have a good foundation? And then I know the perimenopausal women and the postmenopausal women are like, what about me? Yeah. So we could, because I get this all the time. So day 1 to day 10, your body's making estrogen. This is where you can go keto, you can fast as much as you want, and you actually will be best doing a lot of cardio during those first 10 days. I've actually, and I don't know if you've thought about this, Debbie, but I don't know why we vary our workouts in a weekly manner. We should actually vary our workouts in a monthly manner according to our hormonal cycle. Yeah. But for the 52 years I've been on the planet, until I learned these principles, it was always like, 1 day of endurance, couple days of strength training, throw in some yoga, all in a weekly period. But we should actually do it in a monthly period.
Yeah, we do.
So day 1 to 10 is estrogen, more cardio, more keto, more fasting. Those 3 will go together really well. Day 11 to 15, you're now in your ovulation window. This is where you want to do more strength training because you have testosterone. So use testosterone to your muscular advantage. So, and you want to keep your fast a little shorter, closer to 15 hours. And then you want to really go in hard with the vegetables like we talked about. You want to support your gut. You can even during that time focus in on the polyphenol, probiotic, prebiotic foods that will really create great gut health. This is also the time if you are, if you're focused on alcohol or no alcohol, anything that's going to be stressful on the liver during that time. The liver breaks down estrogen, breaks down testosterone. I would avoid alcohol during this time. And any medications if you can. Then when you come out of ovulation, we have a weird little 4-day window. So we have about day 16 to 19, where you can go back into keto. You can go back just like the first part. You can do more cardio, and you'll be fine. But remember, it's only about 4 days. And then about day 19, until you bleed, your body's making progesterone. And that is when you really need to eat more carbs, step out of keto, don't fast, and ideally this would be a great recovery time. More yoga, more Pilates, things that are going to be a little slower paced that don't raise cortisol.
Yeah, not HIIT training that week, and
no HIIT training. Like HIIT training you can, because it's cardio with weights. If you do it that way, you could probably do it throughout the whole cycle, except that week before your period.
Yeah, that's what I find is that week before, you gotta just bring it all down.
Right, exactly.
Bring it all down, but carbs up.
Right, exactly. And that's a hard one for female athletes.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone gets in their routine and they're following a program because they're, again, usually type A, organized, follow everything to a T and not listen to other things that they might go, okay, it's okay to take that week off. But a lot of times when I'm coaching athletes and I'm writing out their programs, I have a deload week. If males and females that they're build 3 weeks and 1 week off. So for the female athletes, we just switch that up based on their hormonal cycle. When is your week before your cycle starting? That's your off week, and match it with that
That's
time
right.
of month.
Yeah. We can actually, I started like, once I identified this, I was like, oh my God, I think we could map everything to our hormones, like social events. You should say no to your social events the week before your cycle.
Yeah.
We could map detox. We've been my world, I've been trying to figure out like, okay, we don't push a big detox the week before a woman's cycle. So once you start to see the lens, you use your hormonal lens, you can really dial in a lot of this stuff.
So good question there. So when should we do detoxes? It's beginning of the year, people start to do their detox and you have the different fasting variations. When is the best time for a cycling female to do it's more of a liver detox digestive reset program?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one nobody talks about. It's funny. I'm happy we're talking about this. So let's go back through the cycle. So you can detox really well in that first day 1 to day 10. You're going to be great there. In the middle of that, in the ovulation period, that's the period where if you are detoxing, you need to make sure you're having bowel movements. So that's my only hesitation during that ovulation period. Your body is breaking down estrogen. If you don't mobilize estrogen out of it, it will store it in the tissues. And this is where we end up with like breast cancer and things like that. So if your detox is providing you daily bowel movements, you can do detox in that ovulation. If it's not, you need to switch more to the microbiome at that time. I also think if you're trying to build muscle, switching to more, really ramping up your protein because of all that testosterone. So, and then you come out of that time period. And again, the 5 days afterwards, you can do detox again. And then the week before, no detox because it's too stressful on the body. The only real nuance you need to be aware of is that week before, and then the ovulation window. A lot of detox provides constipation. So you need to make sure you're having bowel movements then.
Yeah. So then you can tie in when is it best to really hit the sauna and when to do hot cold therapy and pair all that into it's like, all right, this week, because if people don't have a sauna, there's so many, I find new little franchises around each city that has the access to a sauna and cryotherapy and different things. So then when do we tie in those detox type of biohacks to add in to the routine? So maybe they're doing that a little bit more the week of their cycle, just maybe that week is kind of their detox week. They're going to do a sauna session. They're doing more fasting, keto, doing more cardio, days 1 to 10, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's let's go to the biohacking thing here for a moment. Cause that I've been really thinking about this are women supposed to cold plunge all the time?
Yeah.
Are they supposed to sauna? Are we supposed to sauna all the time?
Nothing all the time is what I find.
Nothing all the time. That's right. I think that's, I'm writing a book called Fast Like, it's going to be called Fast Like a Girl. And it's how women should fast. It's Hay House is publishing it. It's a really fun book to write. And I'm so excited to get it out there in the world. But now I'm thinking the title should be Nothing All the Time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I keep saying to people. Like, no, we've talked to Ben Azadi, just talking to Cynthia, and it's all like flexibility on off. It's hormetic stressors and not fast all the time. Don't do low carb keto all the time. Don't do carnivore all the time. Just mix it up and vary everything. Just as a personal trainer is my background, that I don't have people do the same routine all the time. It's muscle confusion. So we shouldn't do the same thing of anything all the time, because like I tell people, I did Ironmans and I wouldn't lose weight at all. I was training 20 hours a week. Did it change my body? No, because I got so used to it. So you got to mix it up to get results.
Yeah, and you bring up such a good point. We know this as anybody who's an extreme athlete knows you vary it to keep getting better performance. But then we don't do that with our nutrition. We don't do that with our fasts. We don't do that with our biohacks. Like, if you're going to look at a sauna is going to be good all the time. And it's very parasympathetic raising, but it is going to be the best in your ovulation window, because you've got to mobilize that estrogen. And it's going to be the best the week before your period, because it's parasympathetic driving. So it's going to make it better for you then. Cold plunges. Now, this I have been really thinking a lot about, and I've had some really interesting conversations. So you should not be cold plunging the week before your cycle. Hands down. You should not be doing that. Because it's too much cortisol. Yeah. But what you could, so just take that off the plate during that time. The next time that you could be cold plunging would be ovulation window, because it does help with production of neurotransmitters that will help with estrogen and testosterone. The other time that cold plunging could be interesting, and I don't know if you've seen this new research, Ben Greenfield talked about this recently, is that athletes that are working out with cold mittens on.
Oh, I don't think
Have you heard about
one.
this?
No, I haven't heard this one.
There's a research study out showing that women were able to perform more push-ups when they put cold cryotherapy mittens on, while they were right before they actually did the push-up, they could actually do more push-ups. So you could do some extremity coldness, like feet and hands, the day 1 through day 10. You could also do full plunges. And then you could do full plunges in the ovulation window, and then come out of ovulation and do the cold hands and feet, and then do nothing the week before your cycle.
That is getting it complicated, but just keep in the calendar. But yeah, to put everything out there. I know, Dr. Stacy Sims is totally opposite of everything we talk about, but they do have that Wild AI app. I know last time I talked to you, they were working on it. And so they have a Wild AI app for matching your fasting and exercise, or not fasting because they don't like fasting, but exercising based on your cycle, how to change your exercise with your menstrual cycle. But it'd be cool to be able to track how I use Training Peaks with athletes. I think we talked about this last year, that having it, if you could have the cycle on there on Training Peaks, and then when to do all this, and kind of have actually I could save it as a program, because then you can have it going every month. Once days of the week, if it changes, you have to alter it. But
yeah, I think so. There's a couple, if you don't have the app or this is a new concept, here's a couple ways to look at it. For starters, if you have like an Oura ring or a Whoop, watch what your recovery is, watch your heart rate variability, watch your sleep as you move throughout your 30-day cycle. And then when you do an activity, then look to see if the next day, how it affected heart rate variability and sleep. The second thing that we see a lot is when women wear the CGMs and they put those on for 30 days, you can see, this is why I'm like 100% convinced that women should be not going keto the week before their cycle, because every woman I have analyzed the CGM and matched it to her period has an uptick of blood sugar the week before the cycle. And then the minute day one starts, the blood sugar comes down. It's crazy. So you could do the same thing with all the biohacking stuff, is look at your Whoop, look at your blood sugar, and now take the tools that you have and see how they vary over a 30-day cycle. And then you'll know what's right for you.
Yeah, I've been using Oura Ring, but I've been trying to tag on there when my cycle is and when my temperature goes up, see if that correlates, because you'll see on the Oura Ring, and I think the Whoop will show it too, but if you're sleeping overnight and your body temperature is up, say, whatever percent, and then if your heart rate's up higher all night long versus like I'm typically around 40 something heart rate when I'm sleeping, and then it'll be 50, or when I'm fighting something or cycling, it might go higher. So it's interesting, kind of put all your biometrics together and track that into personalize your nutrition exercise program, which I do for our clients when we're doing the VIP coaching, that we kind of look at all that data and really dial it in and personalize that nutrition program. Because I think, getting into fasting window, but then what to eat, we're talking about, for female athletes, tweaking what they're eating days of ovulation and before their cycle with those good hormone building carbs. But in general, you're on board keto for just general people, 50 grams when they have their feeding window. So time restricted eating, they're having about 50 grams in gym, more fats and proteins, or how do you vary for if it's like a little more higher protein carnivore-ish? What are your starting points?
If you go keto on your keto days, then you're timing it to your cycle. I call it keto biotic, because I think that your carbs should be coming from nature's carbs. So foods that are going to feed the microbiome. I'm also think that every woman should be thinking about sauerkraut and kimchi. That needs to be, especially in that ovulation window when we're trying to get the microbiome to really be proficient. So 50 net carbs, I think, is great. I think any lower than that is the only reason to do what I call it low keto, where you go into like 10 grams or 20 grams of net carbs. You could maybe dip into that for a day or two to kind of unstick some weight loss, but I wouldn't, especially for a female athlete, I wouldn't go that low. I have now kind of refined my keto biotic, and I have the protein a little higher. I think 75 grams of protein when you're trying to stay into ketosis. When you look at Gabrielle Lyon's 100 and what you said, like, 1 gram for every, I think that, I don't think that is going to let everybody go into ketosis. I think it can be a little bit. So if you're in the front half of your cycle, I feel like you're going to want to stick to more of like 75 grams of protein, not 130 if you weigh 130 pounds.
I think that's where it gets really confusing out there. Is all right, because there's the keto carnivore, and then we got the flexibility and how many carbs are right, but protein is so confusing because, okay, do we need to be in ketosis all the time? And then is it bad as to have more protein if that's going to kick us out of ketosis? But then we need more protein because we're aging athletes, or we're aging in general, we need more. But like, what's the little Goldilocks effect of how much is the right amount for you?
Right. Well, and I think this is why you have to test it. And I really do feel like the two best tests are the wearable, any kind of wearable. So the Oura Ring or Whoop, and the CGM. I think those are the best ways to know so that you can dial it in for you. But what I've seen after, and I'm sure you see the same thing after working with so many women, what I'm seeing is that the first month they kind of try to do this, it feels very awkward. And you're like, you've got like all these tools and you're like, okay, well, ovulation, what's going on? But after you get 1 month through, you go now the second month and you're like, okay, I'm in the first half of my cycle. Let me go keto. Let me do cardio. Okay, now I'm moving into ovulation. Let me up my vegetables. Let me do a little less fasting, more strength training. And you like get this rhythm that is in alignment with how your body was designed. So that literally by the third month, it's just innately, like it becomes so natural that you're not having to count macros. You're not, because you're in a groove with your body. I just did this with, I love working with real high performing people. And I have a really fun woman I'm working with right now. And when I first started working with her, we were talking more about like calories, and she was coming from that place of calories. And so then what we ended up doing is the first month I taught her everything we're talking about, and it was clunky. It was kind of like, what am I doing? How now we're like getting close to the end of the second month, and there's like a momentum that happens. So just, I feel like that's something we really need to take into consideration, that as women, as we play with these tools, it just is going to feel a little weird in the beginning. But once you dial it in, you're so in alignment with your hormonal needs that it becomes very intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive eating, intuitive fueling, I think is important for athletes after a while, go through that process, try it out. And then as we get going into that routine, we create that intuitive fueling and intuitive training. I call it, that we kind of feel it and know what to do without having to look at the calendar maybe and look at what time of day it is, when we should break or fast and what we should eat, but listening to our body, what does my body want today? And looking at it that way. But the macros, do you have people starting out count their macros? I know counting calories and all that, just to get kind of an idea.
Yeah. So when it comes to ketosis, here's the way I look at it, is the first step is you want to remove all the man-made carbs. So, remove all of the breads, the cakes, the pastas, and stick with nature's carbs. So to me, that's the first step of keto. So you're pretty much eating meat and nature's carbs. Now that might be fruit, that might be potatoes, but let's just take the refined stuff out. Then once you've got a rhythm there, then now you're ready to start to count macros. And the macro counting is kind of this temporary phase. And I what I'm noticing in my community is the advanced people, they stop counting macros. They've got the rhythm, they know what's going on. The beginners, the macros are too rigid sometimes. Now your audience might be different because you've got a lot of athletes that are already using these principles, but it's really hard in the beginning. It's the in between, in that middle phase, where the macros are powerful. So, but once you get a rhythm with all this, most people aren't counting macros.
Yeah, I just have flashbacks when I start counting calories or macros from when I was dieting too much in high school.
Right.
Like,
I know.
I can't go there. That was bad memories of doing the soup diet and this diet, and the counting calories is like crazy.
We do every other month in my resetter community, we do what we call a reset. And I take people through a 15-day experience of varying all this stuff. And so one of the things that we do is we count macros, and my staff is like, oh God, really? We're going to I don't want to lead these people through macro counting. Well, I finally, this January, I'm rolling out a reset that is no macros, and everybody, including my staff, the women in my group, where they were like, thank you. But I think for the person who these concepts are new for, we've got to count macros so we can see where we're at. And I think that, I remember I have a friend who went keto and wanted to lose a bunch of weight, and she wasn't dropping weight, and she didn't understand why. She wasn't getting into ketosis. And when I had her count her macros, her carbs were fine, but she was eating like 250 grams of protein a day. And I'm like, that is not going to help you with weight loss.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's that fine line of testing on yourself to find out how much protein is too much, kicking you out of ketosis if you're trying to do ketosis, nutritional ketosis, to burn more fat and lose weight.
that's right.
So the funny thing, I was at my parents' last week and my mom was like, how do you say the kind of food you eat? And I was like, that's a good question. I said, I eat real food.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
What?
That's good.
And I was like, thought about it overnight because my sister's stepdaughter's being vegan right now. And so it's like, well, Iris is vegan. What are you? So then I thought about it. I'm like, well, maybe I low carb natural food, or I eat food from the ancestral health, or, it's really hard to say I eat real food. And to people that don't know necessarily, what does that mean? That,
Right.
Without the vegetable oils, without refined sugars and flours and but it's so funny how confusing it is to teach people, okay, I don't eat gluten and I don't eat wheat and I don't eat the vegetable oils, but how do you say, I just say, I don't put a title on it like keto.
Right.
Or carnivore. Is like, I eat what I want. I eat real food that's not processed. Yep. So it's funny. So how do you explain when people ask you, how do you eat?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always say that I eat nature's foods. So I stay away from the ultra processed, and I don't eat gluten. That's just a personal thing for me. But even there's some ancient grains that some people can do. So I just say, I eat nature's food. So anything that comes from the land or lives on the land, I'm a fan of. And I eat meat, and then I kind of have to say, I eat meat, and what I don't eat is refined flours, sugars, bad oils. Mm-hmm. So, and most people are like, well, what is, tell me more of what that is. The oils are the ones that people don't understand very well.
Especially when you have people that buy things prepackaged at the grocery stores or Costco, and the ingredient list is like half the label is so long of what's in it. I'm like, okay, we were just going to make that with 3 ingredients or 2 ingredients, then it shouldn't have all that stuff in it. So,
you know what, and even the keto foods, like I was on vacation this summer and I went into a supermarket that I've never been in before. And I saw that Oro Wheat had keto bread.
Yeah.
I was like, no way, like this is going to be crap. And so I, of course, pulled it up. It had about 25 ingredients in it. And they were all toxic. And I was laughing to myself thinking, if I opened up a recipe book and there were 25 ingredients for that recipe, I'd probably be like, that's going to be a pain in the butt. I'm not going to make that. Yeah. But we're willing to eat a food that a company has put, these toxic ingredients into. And it's gotten that the food industry has destroyed our health, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, just real quick, I was just recording this post holidays. I made shortbread cookies. It was coconut flour and Kerrygold butter, or any grass-fed butter, and like vanilla. And it's so funny that if you bought cookies, it'd be a gigantic ingredient list. It was so easy to do. And then like making stuffing for Thanksgiving, Christmas is what the ingredients are, pre-made stuff and all that. So it's just funny to teach people, pay attention to what you eat, because I really get frustrated with all these keto foods out there, because I knew it was going to happen. And all this, the low carb keto marketing out there, the grocery stores, that people, clean keto, dirty keto. But that's why I don't like saying keto. I like to say eat real food, because all those labeled foods, and there's a lot down here in San Diego, California, there's, keto this, keto that, but then it's like, that's crap. Right. It's not real food.
This is why I like the term nature's carbs or nature's foods. I think we should always be asking ourselves, did this come from nature? Did a man make this, or did nature make this?
Correct.
And that way you can always, and when you read, you can always steer yourself right. And if you read an ingredient list and it sounds like a chemical, it probably is. Yeah. So that's my litmus test.
Well, how many years ago did I read The Food Rules by Michael Pollan? If you want an easy book, bathroom reading, it's 1 quote per page. And it was you haven't read it before?
Years ago, I read it.
So old. I don't even, I lost it. Someone took it, but it was like, eat what your great grandmother ate and don't eat anything with more 5 ingredients on the label. And I read all that so many years ago, probably 10 years ago. And it was just like, that's so easy,
So
how to
easy.
simplify it. So
Yeah.
anyways, I'm getting off topic, but fasting variations, kind of how we look at the next year, planning out a year. You have fasting each month with your group and the resetters. Kind of, should we look at kind of an annual plan when we should do some fasting?
A great question. Yeah, I mean, okay, so this is actually a really interesting conversation that, again, I don't think enough people are having.
I'm gonna pull up your screen. Hold on.
Yeah,
I found all these. I have your chart. So
I'm like, do I have? Oh, look at what I said.
Google. Thanks to Dr. Google. Google.
Oh my God. Here's what I would say is that in the winter time, we are meant to go more into keto. So when you're looking at, and that, if we go back to caveman days, we're really looking more, cavewoman days, we're really looking more at going keto is good. But whereas in the summer, when nature provides you more access to food, then we can look at going more into more of the vegetables. So, and moving in and out of keto more. So that's from a yearly standpoint, that would be how I would do it. This was, oh my God, this was one of our original charts that we ever did years ago. You found it. I don't know where you found it.
Google.
But here's what I
found this one, and this was your fasting mimicking one.
Yeah. I don't do fast mimicking anymore because they don't like me to talk about it.
Oh yeah. It's not Prolon approved.
It's not. Yeah. I got scolded. So, so let's see, what's that? Alternate day, eat, stop,
it's just
eat.
Different fasting. It was
that's Amy. I'm like, this doesn't sound my languaging. Okay, got it.
So anyways, the fasting, because you have your different fasts each month that you do, you're trying to, get how many million people around the world to fast.
Yep.
And my question is always, these people doing, say, a 3 to 5 day water fast is not always appropriate, or a 36 to 48 hour water fast.
Yep.
That I think for the athlete and the females, we have to kind of go, okay, is that the right time of my life to add that in? And when is it?
Yeah. So let's go through this pyramid. And I've now kind of evolved it into what I call 6 different fasts. And so when we look at them over the long haul, the first fast is intermittent fasting. That's 13 to 15 hours. You can do that anytime except the week before your period. I really encourage you to not fast. If that's really difficult, then keep it at 13 hours. So that intermittent fasting should be your go-to. The next fast is what I call autophagy fasting. And I'm looking at this pyramid and I'm thinking we didn't have it quite dialed in back then. We're learning a lot more. So 17 hours is where you're stimulating autophagy and cleaning the cells out. If you love fasting and you want to do that on a daily basis, except the week before your period, you could do that. I think, it's again, how you want to vary it. 24-hour fasts, honestly, once a week are great. I wouldn't do them more than once a week. I think and they're really for gut repair. When those people with SIBO, any kind of candida, they'll really, really help. The 36 to 48 hour fast, 36 is your fat burning fast. So people who are really struggling to lose weight, I think they should do that one maybe once a month at the most. I've seen people do it every week, but that would be in an extreme situation. So once a month, 48-hour fasts are for resetting dopamine receptor sites in the brain. So a lot of the mental health people with mental health stuff can do a 48-hour fast, but again, once a month. And then the 3 to 5 day water fast once or twice a year. It shouldn't be done more than that. I have coached people who have had really bad, like cancer symptoms, things like that. I've coached them through all of that, through like really regular 3-day water fasts, using Valter Longo's procedures in the sense of of watching white blood cell count, and it's pretty profound. And we've done it. This one guy in particular, he had leukemia, and we literally did a 3-day water fast every week for a year. He did Sunday night through Wednesday night. And I kid you not, by the end of the year, his leukemia numbers were all improved. It was crazy, but that's an extreme situation.
Huh. That is crazy. I think for then you kind of apply that to the lean athlete when they should not be doing all this, but they should do a cell autophagy occasionally, but not do exercise with it, like a 24-hour fast once a week on their rest days, kind of a mobility yoga type of day, walking. But those people that aren't needing to lose weight, I'm finding that are doing too much fasting because you're exercising a high performing individual that they are doing, 36, 48-hour water fast, but then they're doing a lot of exercise still during that time. So when to do these longer fasts, I would say low intensity exercise, right?
Yeah, the when you start to get above 17 hours, a little lower intensity exercise for sure. And on a 3-day water or 3 to 5 day water fast, no exercise. That is not the time. That would be really damaging to your hormones. So when we go into a 3 to 5 day water fast, what I want women to know is, and people in general, but specifically women, the goal is you're literally saying to the body, okay, I'm going to take food out of the equation. I want you to heal. I know you know how to heal better than I do. I'm not going to take supplements. I'm not going to exercise. And it's this is why it's almost like a spiritual fast, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And then what you're really saying is, I'm going to go into this in a healing state and not let any outside noise come in. So it's a real trusting experience with your own intelligence.
So when you do a 24-hour fast, would you also do no supplements during that time? Because that's a whole nother podcast.
You can do supplements during that time. Yeah. It's just the 3 days, the only one that I say no supplements.
Okay. Yeah. There's so many, you could talk for hours on fasting, and because you're always, I don't know how you have time to read all this research, that you're always coming up all these research studies, that it's like a full-time job.
It is. Well, so I'll tell you a little bit of my secret is I have a husband that loves research. So, but between the two of us, we spend 10 hours a week for sure, sometimes 20, diving into the research.
Wow. Do you go to PubMed or what? It's like
PubMed. Yeah, we go to PubMed. He has, and I don't know where all the trackers are, but he's got like alerts on all different kinds. So when a new study comes out, we'll get alerted. But even, for my book right now, like to dive into, last week's a great example. I dove into metabolic flexibility and metabolic switching. What kind of research do we have on switching? Well, when you dive into it, there's a tremendous research on metabolic switching. So, before you know it, you were like attempting to look at one study, and 4 hours later, you've found about 20.
Yeah. See, well, you can just send me the ones for the athletes, because as I speak next year at KetoCon and Low Carb Cruise, my topic is for the athletes. So
great. Okay. When I find them, I'll send it. Yeah. Yeah.
You can be my research assistant.
Yeah. This is totally off topic, but it relates to menstrual cycle. I found a study 2 weeks ago that blew my mind that I hadn't really wrapped my head around. Our cholesterol levels change according to our cycle. So your body will elevate cholesterol when it needs to make estrogen, which is the first part of your cycle. So it raises LDLs, HDLs, it brings it all up because you need cholesterol to be able to make estrogen.
Yep.
And then it goes down after ovulation when estrogen goes down. So that got me thinking like, oh my God, what happens if you walk into your doctor's office in the first part of your cycle and they're like, your cholesterol's high. And then they give you a statin, and it may have just been a natural elevation to make estrogen. And then what I tried to figure out was what happens if you take a statin to your estrogen levels. And I haven't found that yet.
Wow. See, that's why I can't research. There's so many rabbit holes to go down.
Right. That's
all day.
exactly
It's
how it
like, I
works.
actually have work to do for clients and get paid for what I do. But researching, you could do that for hours. So I know it's like rabbit hole in that. But that's interesting because that totally makes sense because cholesterol is precursor to your sex hormones. And that's why I always explain to people that freak out about high cholesterol and they think, lower is better on cholesterol. And I always have my little suggestion in there not to think less is better on your cholesterol front. But then you have to decide when you're going to the doctor, what time of your cycle is a doctor's appointment for females.
Right. That's right.
Add that to your monthly planner.
Yeah.
When I can do this.
What I did do with that piece of information that's really applicable, and I put this in the book. We haven't even really talked about it on a public platform. So here you go. You're getting first info. Is I think this is where seed cycling and seed oils can work. So if you go in with flax oil and help to bring in some healthy oils that might lead to more HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, you're going to actually support that estrogen production in that first half of your cycle. So I don't know if you're familiar with Andreas seed oils, but we love his products. And I'm asking him if we can come up with a female bundle that would time his oils according to our cycle. Wow, you literally can start mapping everything to it.
Yeah, you're gonna have a mapping book.
Yeah, right.
Your next book will be the mapping your life out.
That's a great idea. Okay.
I have my new planner for next year. That's like plan your year. So then you have to kind of make a book like that, a planner for this little old-fashioned spiral notebook. Plan it out.
Yeah, right. So, okay, I'll work on that.
Well, we're out of time already, but what links we want to share in the notes you can send to me, and any programs and whatnot. You've got your group.
I don't know when this is going to come out, but I'll tell you a passion project that I'm really excited about is we're launching the first ever International Fasting Day on January 24th. So we're trying to get the world to fast. And the exciting research on that is if you take somebody who eats a really crappy diet and you just have them eat it in an 8 to 10 hour eating window, they actually don't get the metabolic damage that the diet normally creates. You become immune from that. So I think it's going to be easier for the world to compress their eating window than to change their food. So that's International Fasting Day. Awesome. We're doing a reset. We're doing January. We'll do a reset. So you can find that on my webpage. And you can find everything on my webpage. My true passion is my YouTube channel. That's where all the science goes. So you can find me there. If you want to see what I eat and break my fast with, you can follow me on Instagram. We kind of dribble out different stuff on different places.
Yeah, you have lots of good content, that's for sure.
Thank you.
You guys have a lot of good information. So thanks for doing what you're doing and keeping up. You're always filled with energy and never stopping. So, keep going and sharing that information out there with the world to make an impact.
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. You do the same. We need more voices amplifying this.
Yeah. Teamwork.
Yep. Agreed.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.